Hey everybody, Dan from Talk TV with, there's been a lot of this lately. Another first-time offender, first hazing, Chris Allison, all the way from one of my favorite parts of the world, Sydney, Australia. Chris is known for so much work. It's all in the description, but playing with the amazing guitarist, musician Plini, doing a lot of other session work. We got some clips we're going to show. We're going to talk drumming. We're going to talk about how it all began and maybe even get into some Aussie talk as well. Welcome, Chris. Thanks for taking time.
Of course, Dan. Thank you so much for having me.
Really excited to have you. I got to give credit where credit is due. A friend of mine who I've known since, I can't do the math right now. I've had a real busy day, but I'm 61. When I was 15, I met Rick Zaccaro, the first bass player I ever played with in a band. Known him for years. We actually played together with our old band at the Drum Talk TV 10-year anniversary last year. And Rick is the one that turned me on to you, your playing, and all the craziness that goes on, which we'll talk about. So I want to thank Rick for that. Rick knows that.
Oh, very cool.
I get a very narrow lane, but it's really deep. So Rick's always turning me on to, well, youngsters like you, which is just awesome.
Right.
So where I'd like to start is, because I've become such a fan of your music and your style, and as it's been pointed out by others, your chameleon-like way of playing, where you've got groove, you've got what's often referred to as the math music going on, the polyrhythms, all these different things. What first got you interested in playing drums, and who are some of the first influences, and who are maybe some more recent influences that got you into what evolved into your current style, which is very wide. It's not just one thing, which we'll show everybody in a moment.
Yeah, so I guess my drumming journey began when I was about 12 or 13. So, relatively late compared to a lot of other people that I hear being asked that same kind of question. It was actually a school, I guess, assignment where in music class everyone just had to try and play along to a song of your choosing and try and just play a really basic beat. At the time, I was a failed guitar player and bass player already at age 12 or 13. But
you weren't failed at that. You were graduating up to the drums.
That's a much better way of looking at it, for sure. So yeah, we had to, everyone in the class had to do it. And we had maybe a week to prepare. I honestly can't remember exactly, but let's just say that for conversation's sake. And it just came really naturally to me. So I just practiced on my lap. I just intuited that, like my right hand is a cymbal, so I can play that on my lap. And then I play my left hand as a snare drum and, just tap my foot on the floor. And I realized I could quite easily figure out, what instrument was what. Like I could already hear that the hi-hat is doing this, the snare drum's doing this. It just felt kind of natural. So after we did that assignment at school, I started to harass my parents to start doing drum lessons and get a drum kit and all that fun stuff. But yeah, that's actually what started it. Like I said, I was very interested in music from a very young age. My dad was a bass player, and was my uncle. He would always play music around town with my uncle, who's a guitar player, both amazing musicians. So yeah, music was always around me growing up and whatnot, but it wasn't until, like I said, maybe 12 or 13 years of age that I, fell in love with the drums, and very quickly fell in love with the drums from that point onwards. And the early influences, like it was Lars from Metallica, for sure. That graduated to, I was really into Joe Satriani at the time. So the song I played to in that school assignment or performance, whatever you want to call it, was a Joe Satriani song.
Nice.
So the guy that was playing with Joe at the time was a guy called Jeff Campitelli, who was playing with him for quite a while, I believe. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I really love what he was doing. Very just yeah, just a great rock drummer basically. And then it was a bunch of punk rock drummers after that. So
Oh,
guys like you know, Travis Barker was a big one when he first kind of came around, like Blink-182, and they kind of exploded. At least here in Australia, it was, you know, with the Enema of the State record. So I fast fell in love with what Travis was doing because it was so exciting and kind of different. And then Josh Freese was probably around the same time. I really got into Josh Freese for his work in both A Perfect Circle and the Vandals. And then Brooks Wackerman was another early one because he played on a record. I bought a Vandals record because I just heard of Josh Freese. I was like, I'll go buy a Vandals CD. And I bought the CD, and Josh is on like one tune. And I found that out once I read the liner notes. But the drummer on that album was Brooks Wackerman, and I was really blown away by him. And he was still really, really young at the time.
right.
But yeah, absolutely amazing. So, you know, drummers like that were definitely early influences, and then a bunch of other punk rock drummers too. But that was, yeah, the first, you know, 4 or 5 years of playing, or maybe 4 years of playing, was really centered around that. And then I heard Dream Theater for the first time when I was maybe 16. And all of a sudden, everything was about Mike Portnoy and trying to figure out odd time signatures and things like that.
Oh, great.
So that was a big gateway into then, you know, a lot of other drummers like Vinnie Colaiuta, Dave Weckl, Virgil, like you know, from Australia as well. So he's always been like a bit of an icon, I suppose, because, you know, he's this unbelievably ridiculous drummer that hails from Australia. So so a lot of it was you know, that Dream Theater and Portnoy in particular were a gateway into a lot of that fusiony kind of stuff as well for me. And I guess that kind of gets us more or less to current day stuff, you know, where I'm listening to, you know, some of my you asked about modern guys, or more, I don't want to say modern guys, but newer guys on the scene, you know, far from new at this point, but people like Mark Juliana, Eric Harland, Matt Gasker, of course, and just, Nate Smith, Nate Wood. They're really a lot of the people that are kind of exciting me at this point. And there's probably a million other guys. Oh, Keith Carlock, when he kind of first hit the scene, I was big into Keith Carlock, still am big into Keith Carlock. Gavin Harrison. Another amazing drummer. I definitely do listen to a lot of different music, so that probably accounts for, you know, what you mentioned before of like just hopefully a depth and a breadth of knowledge, and in playing style. It all stems from that, I guess, and just listening to a lot of different things.
It's a great mix because, I mean, out of everything you mentioned, you got punk rock in there, you've got you know, anybody like Keith Carlock that can get work playing with Steely Dan, that has one of the most amazing drumming rosters, along with like Frank Zappa, you know, it's that kind of institution, to Gavin Harrison doing stuff with Porcupine Tree, King Crimson, for goodness sakes. You know, these are some really interesting sort of out there influences, but then bringing it back to the punk days. And there's a lot of really neat stuff in there. What's one of the biggest things you pulled away from someone like, let's take Lars? And I bring Lars up because, as you know, I'm sure that you catch wind of this down there. Lars takes so much flack, and I don't understand why. I don't know what that's all about. But what are some of the biggest things you pulled away from Lars's drumming and admiring what he does, and kind of falling in love with that style of playing, which is totally different from a lot of the other stuff you mentioned?
I think it was just, he was in my favorite band to begin with in the early days. So it was just like, oh man, Metallica. I you know, my introduction to them was the Reload album. I heard it on the radio. I was about 11 years old maybe. And I was just like, whoa, this is cool. And then I just kind of slowly started to work my way backwards. And it was just, he just has this unique personality behind the drums, and does some pretty unconventional things. Like, everyone always talks about the crashes on two, on the backbeat.
Yeah.
Like, that's a big thing, big part of his playing. He just comes up with slightly unconventional ideas, particularly compared to other kind of, I guess, quote unquote, metal drummers, particularly
Right.
of the time. Like, if you compare him to someone like Dave Lombardo from Slayer, he's definitely more kind of straight down the line, fantastic at what he does, but straight down the line metal. It's just fast. The fills just kind of all end on the one. But Lars was happy to kind of go over the bar line and try things out. And I guess he also wasn't afraid of failing. He could easily mess up some of that stuff, and probably did on certain occasions. But I think that kind of fearlessness is something that I really, really like about him. And to this day, still really like about him. None of that, late 80s kind of Metallica that I particularly, enjoy listening to. So Injustice for All and whatnot, that's not easy music.
Right.
And he's doing some pretty out there kind of ideas. So I really like that part of his playing. I understand why he does get flack, because, the guy, he doesn't practice, but he doesn't really kind of need to a certain degree. Like,
yeah, he does what he does.
Worth, several $100 million, and probably practicing drums is probably the last thing on your mind.
Yeah, that doesn't come if you suck. Yeah, it doesn't. You don't have that kind of success if you suck. And something you mentioned, about his fearlessness and doing some things that are unconventional. They say that success is just beyond your comfort zone, and it seems like he's never been afraid to get out of what do people expect the beat to be, and what do they anticipate, and he's kind of playing like in and around that, that's adventurous.
Totally.
Yeah,
absolutely. And yeah, like if you listen to like this, like One, for example, the start of that, the beat is not a strict beat in a sense. Like, the backbeat is kind of shifting wherever he wants it to. There is a kind of freedom there, even if it is the same thing every time. It comes across like he's really free within that, rather than just this rigid kind of like, okay, the backbeat is always on 2 and 4.
Exactly.
So yeah, and that's something that appeals to me, as someone that enjoys improvising. That obviously appeals to me. So and maybe that could be traced, for me personally, it could be traced back to that wandering backbeat in a song like One of Lars. Maybe that opened my ears to that kind of concept. So yeah, man, I'm very much in Lars's corner.
That's cool.
Still to this day.
Great. I want to play. I'm going to skip through a bit of a video, and this is called A Series of Disagreements. It's an instrumental, and I'm wondering, does the name come from the fact that the polyrhythmic patterns just keep changing? Is that why it's called A Series of Disagreements? By any chance?
You could argue that for sure. It's actually more of an interpersonal joke between me and the guitar player. We kind of construct a lot of this music together, and it's a lot of it is just kind of like, there's more talking than playing most of the time, and it's about weird little things that probably don't matter. So it's just kind of like an inside joke about our writing process more than anything.
That's cool. Let's watch some of this, folks, and then I want to talk about this really neat setup as well. One of the things I just love about that is I think it's really an example, Chris, of the fact that so many people have different perceptions of what groove is. You know, to some people, it's just a nice, slushy, four on the floor beat that swings a little bit. And to others like me, I think that is just so full of groove, even though it's an odd time signature. I just love that. Is that Would that be in the realm of something that's very representative of your playing and what you like to do?
Uh, I guess so, to a certain degree, for sure. Like that's definitely, occasionally I have people ask me like, "Will you ever do like a solo project?" And that kind of already is that to a certain degree. Like that's very much my playing. Like I do enjoy angular things and kind of dissonance in rhythmic dissonance or just dissonance in general. Um, that is definitely a part of my personality and musical personality. So yeah, it's definitely a pretty strong extension of you know where my head can go when
That's
pushed
cool.
in that direction,
That's
and
cool.
in the right context, of course. Yeah.
That's awesome. And I want to talk about the setup. One of the things I love about being a drummer and drummers is that if you take a flute, a trombone, a saxophone, a trumpet, a bass, a guitar, a harmonica, you name pretty much any instrument and any random one of the same, the valves are going to be in the same place. You know, there's no alto saxophone that has valves in a different place than other alto saxophones. The piano, the keys
Sure.
are all in the same place, but drummers can just F around with their setups so much. And I love what you have here. You got the snare, the bass drum, the one tom. You got the one looks like an upside down china where maybe a rack tom would go, and a stack. It's like all these eclectic things. Do you experiment a lot with different setups to fit whatever the project is or the composition?
Yeah, I probably used to do more of that than I do nowadays, but I definitely really enjoy trying out different setups and and trying to make myself uncomfortable. Um, this that kind of setup was just born out of um, giving myself limitations. So
Mhm.
something that we talked about early on in that project. Um, was trying to avoid just easy kind of tropes. So using double kick, for example, like in a lot of prog and kind of math e music, double bass drum is kind of part and parcel of it for a lot of people. So you look at bands like Animals as Leaders and that kind of bands of that ilk. So we
Yeah.
kind of like, well, like, how can we avoid just trying to sound exactly like everyone else and not playing double bass is one of them. So then it was just like, okay, well, let's just strip back everything. I first started playing with one rack tom around 2004 or something. It was a bit of a Questlove slash Chris Penny from Dillinger Escape Plan, a
Yeah.
bit of worship on my end. But I really enjoyed the challenge of trying to bring to life songs on a really small kit. So yeah, when I can, I do really love playing a pretty minimal setup compared to what I play with Plini anyway. Plini's the setup I play with him has
Right.
gotten has expanded quite a bit over the last few years. So it very much is in contrast to that kit there. So yeah, I enjoy that. And it puts me in a different headspace as well, which I think
Yeah.
is helpful.
It literally makes you
Yeah.
think and behave differently. You know, if you just mishmash your kid around in a different way, you kind of step out of that muscle memory of knowing where, well, if I do this, I know what it's going to do, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So yeah, I really love that, and um, yeah, it's just puts me in a different headspace, and it allows me to kind of personalize the drum kit to the music, if that kind of makes sense as well.
Yeah.
So rather than just having a one size fits all, which I think there's benefit to that as well.
Mm-hmm.
But it is that kind of nice challenge of, yeah, okay, I want to think differently about this music compared to something else. So an easy way to do that is to change your setup and make it either bigger, smaller, or whatever.
Ah,
Um,
cool.
yeah.
I want to play this other video, which is called, this is live in Brooklyn, and it's Plini doing Kind. I love this. And compared to a lot of the things that are similar to the last piece that are very, very polyrhythmic and I'm going to say cerebral, this has such subtleties and delicacies to it. I just love this. Check this out, folks. My mouth, I've been talking all day. My mouth doesn't work. Give me a break, folks. So beautiful. Just love that. And the drums sound great. You're a sonar artist, and I have another video that will play where you're using the, I believe it's called the earth snare, right?
If it's a video I'm thinking of, it would be. But although that's out of production now, and they call it
Oh,
something
is
different,
it?
which I don't know. I don't know the new name for it, but they changed the wrap on it. But it's a great snare. But yeah, I've been using Sonar drums for 12 years now, I guess.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and makes my life very easy.
That's great. Let's play this one, which is, where did it go? Where did it go? Hold on. I'm looking at my list of, hold on, folks. I'm gonna add a video real quick because the topic I want to address here is this is you playing at 25 beats per minute. And a lot of drummers, I think, don't take the time to play slow stuff. And when we talk about other drummers that get a little bit of flack, Ringo, Nick Mason of Pink Floyd, and that's some of the hardest music to play because the slower songs that are more spatial, there's so much more margin for error. And I think it really would behoove a lot of drummers to do like what you're doing here, which is playing a much slower tempo. It takes patience. It takes, I think, more concentration. And I think it takes a lot less muscle memory because of that. Can you talk about that and how you address slower pieces? And then I'll play that clip.
Yeah, well, the clip you're about to play, if it's the one I'm thinking of, yeah, 25 beats per minute, it's not actually that good. I listened to that, not that when it was sent through, and I was like, oh, wow, yeah, okay. My time has gotten better since I did that. But no, I think it is definitely, playing at a slower tempo, like, at 25 beats per minute, or anything like that, it just does take that extra level of concentration. It's so easy to, if you're playing at, say, 120 beats per minute, like rely on that
Yeah.
click or the metronome to keep you in time. But if you're at 25, there's so much space, and like you said, there's so much margin for error there. I kind of wanted to eliminate that as best as I could from my playing, so I can, with or without a click, I can rely on myself to have good time. and reliable time. Yeah, I think doing exercises like the video that you'll show in a sec, and then any other kind of things where like exercises where like a offbeat click, for example, or something like that is
Right.
really beneficial, and really does put the onus on you to have strong time. And the other thing that it does do is that if you can concentrate on playing at such a slow tempo, or hearing the click really slow, even if it's one click per bar, for example, once you do have the whole regular click there, your life is so much easier. Like you can relax so much more into it, and you end up fighting the click pretty much never. It's just like the click is there, it's a background noise, and you never need to think about it. And particularly in the live settings, you like with Plini, every song is to click. Pretty much everything that I've done live in the last however long has been to a click.
Really?
So having that ability to just be immediately comfortable on stage and not have to worry about, am I rushing, am I dragging or whatnot, just being confident that it's like, okay, I'm going to be comfortable straight away. That's, pretty important as far as I'm concerned. So all those type of exercises of displacement and click displacement, things like that have been invaluable to make my life easy. And I also do like spacious clicks at the best of times. I've listened to other bands that we've toured with clicks, and they have 16th notes going and things like that. I would go insane if I listened to that many clicks for a tour or something like that. So I love spacious clicks. And
That's
again,
cool.
that puts the onus on me to make sure that I'm on top of my playing, basically, and making sure that my subdivisions are as accurate as they possibly can be. And I feel like I can relax more. If I just had, I'd find that really hard to relax to.
I think I'd have a seizure or something. Let's show that video. Check this out, folks. This is food for thought.
Yes, exactly.
Practice slow beats. Check this out. I love that stuff. That is only going to help someone's playing by practicing that, So what do you have going on? What are you working on now, and what's coming up? Are you getting ready to tour?
So we have got European Summer Festival and some headline and support shows over the next couple of months. So in about 3.5 weeks, I go to Europe until the end of August. So it's a pretty we got a couple of weeks off in the middle there, but it's going to be pretty intense in terms of shows and whatnot. So it'll be playing some festivals over there. We're doing some shows with a band called Polyphia in Italy and Germany, I think, and then a bunch of headline shows through the UK and into mainland Europe as well. So that's kind of turning into the forefront of my mind. And then after that, we come to the US at the end of the year in October, November, and we're playing with Animals as Leaders.
Great.
As part of their their album Joy of Motion. So Plini actually has toured pretty extensively with Animals over the years, but prior to me playing with Plini. So it'll be my first time kind of getting to tour with them, although I've toured with Javier whose project Mestis. We did, I think I played in Europe, US, and Australia with him, doing that. So yeah, I'm looking forward to all that, and that'll round out the year in terms of touring. Yeah, and what have I been up to? Fair bit of recording of late, which has been great. Just tracked a few albums already this year, and we just did 2 songs for Plini that are kind of going to be standalone kind of releases a week or 2 ago, I think. So Simon Grove, who plays bass with for Plini, as well as he's kind of co-produced and engineered and mixed his last few releases. Yeah, we went into the studio a few weeks ago and probably pulled the best drum sound we've pulled so far.
Oh, nice.
So that's exciting. Yeah, and just a handful of other things, and then just teaching as well. I teach when I'm home, and occasionally on the road. So, yeah, and I just finished a project which I don't know how much I can really talk about, but I'm pretty excited about. It's a bit different.
Oh, great! Tell us all about it.
With cool people. So it's yeah, but it is exciting. I'm looking forward to it. I'm not sure when that will come out, but
when you can talk about it, let us know, and we'll have you back on.
Oh, great! Yeah, we'll do. No, I appreciate that. Thank you.
That would be great. So, do you have you've toured a lot? Do you have a favorite place in Europe, a favorite place in the UK, and a favorite place in the States that you look forward to if you see it on the itinerary?
Oh, I have a lot. I really, there's not many places I don't look forward to going to. You know, living in Australia and growing up in Australia, traveling to overseas to play music just seems like a bit of a pipe dream. It's definitely not something I really, with any sort of honest sense, thought that I would get to do. So the fact that I do get to do it, I'm just generally pretty grateful to be able to go anywhere and do it. You know, I've been very fortunate to you know, travel to the US a bunch to play, and Europe and even places like India. I've been to India 3 times. It's like that shouldn't be a thing. But to answer your question, in terms of like European cities in mainland Europe, I always love going to Budapest. That's a beautiful city. And the shows are generally really good there. Where else? I'm drawing a blank. I'm going to need to look at a map. Paris was great last time we were there, which was about this time last year, maybe. Paris has always been pretty great. In the UK, Glasgow is always fun to play. I always really enjoy my time there. London is always amazing to play. We played Plini's biggest headline show to date in London last year, which was pretty amazing. So always enjoy that. In terms of the US, always love going to Denver. Yeah, that was a low-key wild show the last time we were there. I think it was like 1,100 people or something like that, which on like a Tuesday, which seems pretty crazy to me, in a good way, of course. So I always enjoy going there. Chicago, New York, LA, always fun shows. Always look forward to playing there. Toronto great. Would be another one.
Okay, yeah,
is always a good time. Boston, Boston is always good too. Yeah, I'm drawing blanks on a few other. Dallas, always a good show in Dallas.
That's great.
Off the top of my head, those are the places I always look forward to going to for sure.
And where can people get a hold of you if they're interested in lessons? Do you teach online?
Yeah. So I teach in person if you're in Sydney, or online if you're literally anywhere else. generally just my website, which is just chrisallisondrums.com.
Cool.
Yeah. There's like a contact form on there. And worst comes to worst, DMs on direct message on Instagram or yeah, that's pretty much all
Cool.
I use. So Instagram we'll be able to sort something out. So
That's awesome.
any of those places, yeah, definitely
Cool.
good place.
Well, this leads us to the Chris Allison Fun Fact segment. And my last question for you, Chris, is when you're totally away from music in whatever small sliver of time that may be, when you're not rehearsing, not writing, not producing, not recording, not touring, not tuning, what do you like to do outside of music?
I have a young family, so I just enjoy hanging out with my family. So I've got like just under a 2-year-old.
Oh, wow.
So you know he takes up a lot of time and energy. So which I love. So I would just say spending time with them. It definitely takes up a lot of time in a very positive way. But you know, outside of music, I don't really have a great deal amount of hobbies. I do enjoy traveling, which obviously works nicely into getting to tour. But I enjoy traveling, getting out of Sydney, and doing things like that. I enjoy like movies, watching a good movie every now and then. Although I don't get to do that enough nowadays. I don't make enough time for it, is how I probably should think of it. Yeah, they're kind of the main things. I don't really have any, like I don't play video games or do anything like that. So it's pretty one-dimensional in a certain sense. Like, yeah, my downtime is literally just hanging out with the family, and then occasionally a movie, hanging out with friends.
Cool.
You know. Just things like that, realistically. So
Great.
yeah, nothing, no weird hobbies like I don't know what a weird hobby would be, like making figurine. That's not weird. It's not to say it's weird, but nothing unusual. I
Ice sculpting or chocolate sculpting.
Right. That maybe I should get into that. But no, I was never good at physical art in any sort of way. A terrible painter. Yeah.
Well, but drums has worked out pretty well.
So far, I kind of complain, and always chipping away at that. So I guess that's sculpting to a certain extent.
Sound sculpting, percussive sculpting, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Well, Chris, when you can talk about that other project, please reach out to Steve or myself and let's get you back on. And I'd love to see you when you come out to the States. That would be awesome. And I really appreciate you taking time. Yeah. What's that?
Well, I think we play Arizona. I think we play Arizona, maybe Phoenix.
Okay.
I think off the top of my head. So I'll let you know when exactly that is. And
that would be great.
If you're free.
Absolutely. I'd love to make time for that. That'd be awesome. Thanks for making time. Thanks for letting us get to know you a bit more. First time on Drum Talk TV. We appreciate it. And folks, thank you for following what we do. Thanks for joining Chris and myself here on his first appearance on Drum Talk TV. Looking forward to more. And Chris, hang on the line after we disconnect from the audience. And thanks, everybody. Take care. Stay tuned. A lot more jam-packed into May. Thanks, everybody.